was Nick gonna dial in, or this was when he's gone, right? He's the main or something. Okay, so I am gonna call the select board meeting of Tuesday, October 26th to order. And the first item is approval of our agenda.
I move.
Second.
So Kathleen, are there any last minute additions, deletions?
I don't have anything.
Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda as drafted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Next is approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, I'd like to draw attention to a couple things. First, I'd like to read into the record a thank you to Shirley Pominville. It says, Dear Shirley, on behalf of the residents of the town of Middlebury, I want to thank you for your many years of service and your dedication to caring and tending the plants in the island of Washington Street Extension and Seminary Street Extension. All your hard work has been appreciated and enjoyed by residents living nearby, as well as pedestrians and motorists who travel through that intersection on a daily basis. We also want to thank your family members who have helped you, Kathy, who sanded and painted the curb, to Joel for providing new soil, and Beth, who has helped with the planting, weeding, and watering throughout the years. We also want to extend special thanks to Beth, who will be taking over your gardening duties and tending to the plants in the island in your retirement. Signed with the Middlebury Selectboard. And that's a lot of community service. And we really, for those who are watching out there, if you see Shirley, please make sure she knows that we've all appreciated the beautification of that part of Middlebury. The other thing is there's a really good brief. If you haven't looked at it, please do spend some time digesting it on the ARPA program that Kathleen has put into the town manager's report, because as we start working through our utilization of those funds, your understanding of that program will help our discussion. And then we had asked for an analysis of the EDI, and there is a back of the envelope analysis in there, and so that should help with any further discussion on that as far as the starting point. So with the motion on the floor to approve it and second it, are there any other comments on the consent agenda? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Citizen comments. I know you're here, Roger, for something, and I'd ask you to come up so that we can get it for the notes, because our mic is here that records what's said. We don't have a court stenographer, so we rely on that quality of that.
Sit, stand, what's your preference?
Sit. So just state who you are and make your comments.
My name is Roger Waterman. I work for Borgo Brothers, a local business in town. I've kind of enjoyed a lot of the beautification of Middlebury, but there's a couple of spots that have plagued me a little bit and are egregious and grievous to people who drive trucks or big equipment in town. It's planting of these beautiful little trees that very shortly flourish, and unless you are sitting in something very low to the ground, they are a visual obstruction. If you have a chance to go down Exchange Street, there's some trees in front of Champlain Valley Plumbing and Heating that are treacherous to pull out in unless you are in a very low passenger vehicle. In front of Feed Commodities, they planted a whole string of trees that are a visual block if you go out of there with a truck, and that's what that business does, is go out in a truck. If you're in a large piece of equipment going down Exchange Street in front of RK Miles and you meet another vehicle, There's an apple tree that will take your lights off and your nozzles and part of your equipment. You go down Seymour Street, there are trees that have been planted as recently as this summer. And I believe in the car, it said the Middlebury Tree Alliance, but I'm not absolutely sure. And these beautiful little trees are very shortly going to flourish by where they're put into a visual obstruction. And I know that some of these people say, well, part of the stipulation of their permit is they put up trees and they put up, and so I'm imploring whichever board takes care of that to maybe think about these things and not plant them where they're going to be a hazard, and not plant them directly under power lines that are going to require extra future maintenance in short order. And I don't know the proper channel other than to bring it to you folks for review and sort of let the action take place. I think if you were to poll a lot of people, they do appreciate the beautification of the trees. But if you talk to a lot of the people that are working in trucks in those businesses, in Exchange Street and Seymour Street are a lot of truck traffic. It's not very considerate to their needs. And that is the scope of trying to complain as eloquently as possible.
Okay, I think we've got the point. Thank you, Roger. We will pass that on to the committees that actually work those issues. And
Only for my curiosity, who, is that a zoning board thing? Is that a?
It's a number of different things. If it's a requirement for like the construction of a project, then that would be the design and review board. And if it's the tree committee, we have a tree committee. And then they work with the infrastructure committee on where the plannings go and everything, and that's a consideration maybe we've got overlooked.
You know, I know that, you know, when we started making, I say we, it's not my business. The place I worked, when they started making improvements a long time ago, you know, they asked for a row of trees and this and that, and that was fine for a long time. But, you know, now it's a big flourishing nuisance. So if you're gonna trim it, it's gonna be, you know, trim it to make it safe. It's gonna be ugly. And if you have some consideration of that in the future, until we don't, you know, run that size equipment, it's.
Well, the selection of the plannings is critical in that too, then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good point.
Anyway, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Are these all on public, private properties, or there's some on public land too?
Sounds like some of them are right away.
Some of them on the right of way?
I believe that they're all in businesses.
Okay,
The ones that I'm referring to, I believe that they're on business properties.
Okay.
You know, and I don't know even the name of the trees like that are in front of Feed Commodities. It might be part of the Bees Wrap or the Vita project. But you go to Champlain Valley Plumbing and Heating, there's a couple of
yeah, I know.
oak trees there that have nothing but flourished. Well, if you sit up in something that's truck height or application equipment height, you know, you've got a lot of business out in the street before you can see somebody. And a lot of times when people wave at us, they don't even use their whole hand. So, you know, it's just, it seems unnecessary nuisance. Yes, but there might be another way to beautify things, or to have it maybe in a little different location, or maybe plant a shrub that,
Maybe the right down trees. Right.
well, maybe plant something that's low to the ground that'll give you that green and beauty, but not be a hazard to small cars going out or large equipment. You know, we stop at the fuel stop multiple times a day, certain times of the year, and it's tight. It's, and you know, as these things flourish, it only gets more egregious if it's in your line of sight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We get Dan and,
We have Judy Wagner Rose has her hand up.
okay,
We were just having a conversation of planting in the right of way on, in East Middlebury.
Hi, Judy. You're on mute.
Judy, can you unmute your speaker, your mic?
Am I on? Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. In response to the last citizens' concern or citizens' comments, as you know, the tree committee has been planting along Seymour Street, not along Exchange Street per Kathleen's recommendations, but I would suggest that I'm sorry, I don't know who this person is, but that he would contact the tree committee, because we have done everything according to town specifications. We have asked all of these trees have been planted on residents' properties, and yeah, I wish I could apologize for any inconvenience, but I cannot. We had permission, we had money, we had grants, we had everything we needed to do this work. Thank you.
So thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, now Dan. Hey, Dan, you're gonna travel through space and time to join us in the meeting.
Hey, Dan, good evening.
Good evening. Okay. All right. Excuse me. The first item up for the process tonight is for it's item 6A on your agenda. It's the flood resiliency project change order number 2. This is for wood and other tire disposal costs, part of the project. A lot of this was behind the Murray property. There's some very large tree trunks that no one could move, pretty much except for Markowski and their big excavator. So the change order is for $9,475.30. It's for, like I said, wood removal and tire removal. And I'm asking you to approve that change order number 2 for that project.
I have a couple questions on this. One, can you explain what change order number 2 means? I don't know what that means. The other question I have is this an accumulation of all the debris that's coming down the river, or does it belong to somebody that we are cleaning up?
Repeat your first question because I couldn't hear it.
The change order number 2, I just want to know what that means.
I mean, change order number 2 is the second one in the process. So as we go through a project, there's a change order 1, and then the next one is number 2. So we've already approved change order 1 a few weeks ago, and so this was number 2. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is for there were some large trees that could not be removed by the tree contractor that was originally part of the project for the trimming along the bank. Some of this was had been downed long ago, years ago. Ownership, who knows? But some of this stuff was, 2.5 to 3.5 feet in diameter, and we're just laying there. So it needed to get out of the way. There's some large trees that were dropped as part of this project after some of the equipment that was being stored behind Murray's on the berm. Couldn't drop that until that scrap material was out of the way. So that's why it was at this point of the project. Some of the tire remover was items that were dug up out of the berm as they remove some of the rocks and stone along the south side of the berm, the river side of the berm. They dug into it and found all kinds of debris that was buried decades ago. So some of this is some of that material also.
The reason I asked was because we had some issues with that property having a lot of junk in the back. So I didn't know if this was part of that.
Well, some of it is, and some of it's, I don't know how long the Murray residence was there, but I do know that they dug up some scrap metal that was found along the berm and other places along there too. I got to tell you, people used to dump stuff along rivers, and unfortunately, that's what happened, and we dig it up, and there it is.
Thank you, Dan.
I'll move to approve change order number 2 for the flood resiliency project for the removal of the trees and wood debris from the project area at a total cost of $9,475.30.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next one, I'm going to abstain from.
So all on this one. Dan, go ahead. I'm going to chair on this next one. Brian's abstaining.
Right. Okay. Ready to go?
Go ahead.
Okay. So this is item 6B on your agenda. It's a purchase of a sidewalk sander. This is a unit that will go on the existing Bobcat. Bill's requesting the board to make the approval. It was presented in front of the infrastructure committee. At the time the town bought the Bobcat, it did not have a factory spreader, so we had to use purchase an aftermarket made by Bauman. Unfortunately, there's not as much control as it needs to be. And from what's relayed to me, there's instances where there's too much sand is applied or salt's applied, and then none, and it's batchy, and it's not as wide as a sidewalk, so there's more of a trail down the middle, and it's just been given the highway department fits and the pedestrians too, because it's inconsistency in application. And so I know we get calls about, hey, there's too much sand on the sidewalks, or there's none. So anyway, the hope is that this Bobcat unit will perform as it should. And I guess there's no reason to expect that it wouldn't, but that's the situation. So Bill's requesting the board to approve a purchase of a Bobcat's sidewalk sander from Champlain Valley Equipment. The total cost would be $3,899. $1,292. And that would be after a trade-in allowance of $1,250. I want to just clarify point number 3 in the board notes, if you're looking at those. The purchase would be from the salt budget, and they expected to see around $30,000, I guess, in savings in this winter's budget because they purchased salt last year. Not so much that it's going to save $30,000 based on the use of this sander. So just a clarification that there weren't expectations about saving $30,000 in salt by a sidewalk spreader. So anyway, the request is to purchase the Bobcat sander from Champlain Valley Equipment for $3,830.
Questions? Motion?
I move to award a contract to Champlain Valley Equipment for the purchase of a Bobcat sand and salt spreader at a total cost of $3,830 after trade-in.
Second.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the HVAC.
Okay, the Energy Committee is looking into starting to look at replacing the HVAC units on the top of the police department roof. They've got a variety of proposals on different technologies and units and so on and so forth. But what they're looking for is to have the company, it's Engineering Services of Vermont, who's also doing the library study for its heating system. Let's take a look at replacing the rooftop units, RTUs, if you hear that term in the chatter about this. The current RTUs are on the roof. They have been propane converted to gas, and they want to know what it would cost to replace the current units with updated gas-fired system. So the consultant has said we could do that for a cost of $1,000, and the engineering or the Energy Committee is requesting you to approve them to spend $1,000 out of their budget that has been set aside, over a couple of 3 years now for this project. And as I said, that's to be able them to compare apples to apples with different technologies for future replacement of those RTUs.
I'll move to accept the proposal from Engineering Services of Vermont to perform the supplemental work specified by the Energy Committee on the Police Department's HVAC system study at a total cost not to exceed $1,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments on this motion? There are none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Okay, the next item is the Washington Street water system improvement bids and document. Kathleen, are you going to have things up on the screen, or do I just need to talk through, or what's
What
working?
would you like me to have up on the screen? Dan?
Well, the spreadsheet, if you've got it, and if it's too small to read, I'll just forget about it, and I'll read through it. But there were 4 bidders for this project. Again, just to refresh everyone, this starts at Washington Street, 5 Corners, and Seminary Street, which is a block east of Shaw's and Butthoff Drive. Comes all the way down Washington Street, down Court Square, through Court Square, around the south side of Court Square, and then over to the top of the green, along the sidewalk at the top of the green, and over to Seymour Street at the Congo Church. Yep, that works great. So there's the 4 bidders, pretty widespread. Belden is the low bidder at $1,986,895. This is a contractor that did the Court Street water main project this last summer. So we have some good experience with them. The engineer is Otter Creek Engineering. They also have obviously experience with Belden. And let me flip my screen back over this way. Okay. So they have checked the bid for accuracy and has submitted a letter to you that was in the packet recommending that you award the bid to Belden for that amount. So you can approve, I guess the best way to do it is approve the receipt of the bid. And then we send these documents over to the state, and then the state sends us a notice that we can award it, and then the actual award is done after that. So Kathleen has to send a letter to the state requesting that they concur to award the contract. So you really don't approve the contract, but you can accept the bid so we can move the paperwork along. How's that for process?
And we've got a proposal, I think, that will work just as well, to basically award it subject to a receipt of an award authorization. Is that acceptable?
That's fine. That way we don't have to come back and go through this again.
The thought.
I'll move to award a contract to Belden Construction for the Court Square and Washington Street Water Improvement Project at a total cost of $1,986,895, contingent upon the receipt of an award authorization from the Water Investment Division of the Agency of Natural Resources.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments?
No, but I'd like to point out number 2 in the notes, because Dan didn't, and I just want to give Dan a virtual pat on the back, that of the roughly $2 million, 1.3 million is covered by a combination of grants that Dan has secured. So that's really big. So
Yeah.
I would just like to make sure it's entered into the record and thank Dan for all of his hard work, especially because I think a lot of what he's been doing over the course of 3 or 4 years has really set us up well to get this grant money. And, I don't know if you remember, but when we approved those engineering costs, and we've been doing a lot, he's been doing a lot of work over the last few years, so.
He was doing the design and cost estimating. He was ready to get these grants when they came.
Yeah.
So the 700,000, the other 700,000 comes out of the water fund, I assume?
So there's, just because I'm not quite, yeah, it does. I don't know, Kathleen, if you have that other sheet that's handy that shows that project cost summary, if you want, I'll quickly go through that. If not, there's there's 750,000 that comes from principal forgiveness. Northern Borders Regional Commission grant was 600,000. So along with subtracting those off of the bids, there it is. So if you look at Kathleen, if you can point out the DWSRF ad subsidy principal forgiveness, there's the 750,000. Below that is a Northern Borders 600,000. And so our loan for our share of this project is 951,000 and change. The next line, 198,000. That's what we're on the hook for Court Street. The remainder was a $680,000 grant, roughly in that ballpark. So our obligation for both of these projects is the 1.15 million that we need to pay for. So Kathleen will work her magic with if it's going to be local options or we go through the bond. But anyway, it's not 3 million or so, it's 1.1. So it worked out pretty well.
worked out pretty well.
And yeah, and the bonds are almost 0% interest, right? Okay, any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. All right, Dan, did you have anything else for us?
Just briefly, and that is at the last infrastructure committee meeting. Let me move my screen over here again. This keeps jumping away at me. The infrastructure committee approved a capital improvement budget, which I think you're going to see in greater detail over the next few weeks. And I'm trying to get that number. Okay, so they approved to send it to you. The overall capital improvement plan for FY23 is $1,575,585. A good portion of that is the heating system for the library, which I think will be discussed in more detail in the near future. But so that work is done as far as the committee is concerned. So we'll talk more about that in the next few weeks. That's all I have.
Has Hutchins given any indication when they're gonna have all the painting done?
I don't know that. I know they're kind of ticking away at it little by little, but you know, dampness at night just does not work. That's gonna be the issue. A couple sunny days now, so.
Yeah. It would be nice to at least get those crosswalks in.
Yeah, it's time.
Just to add to Dan's comment, given that the next infrastructure committee meeting would fall on a holiday, Veterans Day, we met twice in October to get the budget reviewed and ready to go to the select board. So we will not have an infrastructure committee meeting in November. Just to let you know, we'll meet again in December.
All right, we can have a nice November. Are you a hunter, Dan?
I am not.
So you
Shucks.
can be a relaxer in November then.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, next is Elise.
Okay. Hello, Elise.
Elise?
Hi there.
So you're here to ask for a subordination agreement.
Yes, just to subordinate the town's existing mortgage on 428 Court Street to a new primary mortgage with the National Bank of Middlebury.
Elise, we were a little bit light on our description of your project in the agenda notes, so maybe you could recap the important work you're going to do with that refinance and the lower interest rate you're going to get.
Sure. So this note matures next summer with a balloon payment, so we are going to have to refinance it within the next 9 months. Regardless, we'd like to do it now because we would like to plan for some capital improvements we need to get done next summer. The building was constructed in 2005, and yet we've actually had the roof fail prematurely. So we're looking at replacing. We've actually already replaced the front roof that fronts onto Court Street. That it was a factor in actually drawing down the replacement reserves at that property. Now we need to do the back of the roof. And we've also discovered that we have some drainage issues on that sloped site with water shutting off and penetrating into the foundation wall in the covered parking area. And that work's estimated to cost around $50,000. Also Otter Creek Engineering providing that estimate. So the principal balance on the mortgage is about 110,000. I believe the existing rate is it's above 6%. So we're going to refinance that $110,000 principal balance. The new rate's around 5%, and we're going to cash out $50,000 to cover that drainage work. We will be planning a more substantial renovation of the property in probably the 3 to 5 year time frame. But in the meantime, with water penetration issues, we don't want to let those hang out there while we get funding for a larger project.
Okay, any questions from the board?
I just have one question, and this is a historical question. The town actually loans money? We loan money for this project?
Well, typically these are pass-through loans or grants from the Vermont Community Development Program. A lot of our affordable housing was supported that way. Do you have anything to add to that, Elise?
No, that's correct. ACCT and formerly Housing Vermont, now Evernorth, we come up with a project application, and the town of Middlebury applies on our behalf for the project funds because of the Community Development Block Grant Program. Municipalities are the eligible entity. So essentially it's a pass-through either loan or now sub-grant.
Is this the money as it's paid back that becomes part of our reloan fund?
Yeah. I don't know if this one is in repayment yet, but the one at Hope was one that became part of our revolving loan fund as it was paid back.
So does that change money coming into that by doing this?
I don't think that there's any money coming from this particular project at this time.
Any other questions? Pleasure of the board.
I'll move to authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign subordination agreement with regard to town's mortgage on the property owned and operated by Stonehill Housing LP at 428 Court Street.
Second.
Moving second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Can't believe that roof already failed on me.
Maybe she didn't hear you.
Sorry, what was that? I'm having a little trouble hearing.
I'm just surprised that the roof already failed. 15 years for that roof doesn't seem like it might.
Yeah.
Like it should.
We are too. We've heard that it has to do with the quality of the tar or the asphalt that they were using in that roofing product from that era.
Okay. Yeah, because it's not like you have trees dropping stuff on it there. That's pretty open and has good sun.
Yeah.
Okay, did you have anything else for us?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Elise.
Take care.
Jim?
I like the sound as people.
The fairy sound.
Kind of feel like bewitched or something. Really?
Good evening.
Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Hey, Jen. So Jen's here to ask for our support on a grant, so I'll let you take it, Jen.
Well, it's that time of year again for the municipal planning grant. These grants have a maximum amount of $24,000, which includes a $2,000 town match. I'm proposing this year to ask for the maximum grant amount to do a bike ped plan. Sort of a limited bike ped plan, probably focused on the downtown area mostly, but which can be inserted as a module into a larger town-wide transportation plan once we find other sources of funding to complete that project. There was a sort of something in the packet which you probably already read, so I don't want to repeat myself. I'm trying to think what's salient here, but we've had a lot of questions lately about sidewalks and trails and bike lanes and things like that. So so this bike ped plan would include a robust public process to help us get all of that input put into one place and combine it with some staff input and some scientific knowledge of what's going on in the roadways, and probably develop, I'm hoping, 4 or 5 projects conceptually, so that we'd have some things to apply for when some of these bike ped grants come around every year. So
Would this be incorporating the areas of the, like your new developments that you've proposed? Would you be looking at the bike ped to those areas and see how that works as well? Is that part of this plan?
Yep, it really does dovetail nicely with our agenda of trying to promote more infill development, utilizing vacant lots proximal to the downtown. It helps with the NDA designation because one of the big things on their checklist is trying to encourage pedestrian connectivity to these new development areas. They want to see that. And they want to see that the town has a commitment to that. So this is one way for us to organize our thoughts.
I'm hopeful it gives us it gives the infrastructure committee some guidance on what we move forward, you know, what sort of priority, what projects we move forward for new sidewalk work. So.
Any questions? Okay, pleasure of the board.
I'll move to approve the submission of an FY22 municipal planning grant application seeking $22,000 in funds to develop a targeted bike ped plan for the downtown and future neighborhood development areas. I further move to authorize required town matching funds of $2,000 for the grant application.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You're gonna keep getting our support when you keep turning out good products. So we'll throw the match at it because it keeps moving us forward, and we appreciate it, Jen.
Well, thanks for your support, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jen. Have a good night.
Let's see.
Leslie?
Hello.
Good evening, Leslie. So you want to walk us through your request for the approval of the grant?
Yeah, the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program is offering a grant to mostly targeted at communities that have found emerald ash borer infestations in their town. So the grant is called Growing Urban Forests in the Face of Emerald Ash Borer. And we are asking for a few things. I just wanted to preface this is why do we plant trees in the community? And that is, there are quite a few environmental benefits for maintaining our tree canopy. Main ones are cleaning of air. The trees filter dust and pollutants, and they breathe oxygen. They also absorb and reduce stormwater runoff, which is very important to reduce erosion and pollutants. And they're also, trees are habitats for many birds and mammals and good insects. So what we have been faced with, because we have done a shade tree inventory in the town is that we know that we have at least 74 ash trees in the public right of way that will need to be taken down, most likely in the next 5 years, according to Bill Kiernan. And also, this is what we have described in our town Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan. With the grant, which we're asking for $12,000 and matching that with volunteer hours and donations, which totals around $24,191. We are hoping to plant, depending on the sourcing of the trees, 22 to 47 shade trees. And wherever there are no utility wires in the right of way, we're trying to use to plant the trees that have most impact and environmentally. And the other part of this grant is that we are asking, and this grant allows for us to apply for funds to finance a part-time employee to update our street tree inventory. It hasn't been updated since 2016. And we have the support of the tree warden and the Department of Public Works, which would help them manage the tree population. That's.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Does anybody have a question on this? And you could, and I note that the town's match portion of the grant would be in-kind services, and it would not be any financial obligation from the town on this particular grant request.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, any town staff time we're paying for already, but you know, that's part of where it comes, you know, where the match comes from, so.
Well, there are many hours by volunteers for planning to plant this many trees and contracting and all sorts of things. You would be amazed by how many hours one puts into this.
Pleasure of the board.
I move to approve the submission of a growing urban forest in the face of Emerald Ash Borer Grant application seeking $12,000 in funds for tree planting in selected town right of way, with remaining project expense to be provided by in-kind services.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Leslie.
Do I need to leave? Sorry.
I can,
No, I will. Thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate your support.
assign you as an attendee if you'd like to stay.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Joe.
Good evening.
So you're here to present our draft charge?
Yeah, this is substantially the same draft charge to the working group. I think that we looked at previously. We made a minor change to it. I think you all have it in your board packet there.
found the interesting, it was like a college paper, 3 to 5 page report.
I can tell you from the first meeting of the working group that the chances that this will come in under 5 pages are somewhat unlikely, but we'll do our best.
Gonna go for extra credit.
Why did we put that 3 to 5 in there as opposed to just developing a report? I'm just curious.
I think we were looking for something to guide the work. That's what we'll shoot for. Yeah, I think we were just trying to get a sense of scope. And once we put that number out there, I think we are, after our first meeting, we are starting to feel like maybe the scope is a little bit bigger than that. But I don't think at this point, we don't anticipate it doubling or anything like that. It just might be a little longer.
3 to 5 pages suggests succinct as opposed to 10 to 20 pages. So we'll try to keep it brief. We had an initial meeting on the 14th of October. We'll be meeting again this Thursday with a walkthrough of the library. It was a good first meeting. I believe you have the minutes in your packet, and we think we're off to a good start.
I do think with a bunch of literary people writing and the level of the minutes detail, that trying to come in under 5 pages is going to be a bridge too far. But if you could keep it to an executive level summary in its scope, it would probably be well served so that it will help guide us, but not bog us down.
We'll do our best.
Lots of comments? Pleasure of the board.
I think they did a great job. I read the minutes for the first meeting. It was very extensive, very detailed. So I'll move to approve the select board's charge to Ilsley Library Renovation Expansion Working Group.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, well, we wish you luck in your journey.
Well, thank you. And please note that Beth Dow gets the credit for the extensive minutes there. The Zoom, the meeting was recorded and she took them after the fact. They'll be shorter next time because we won't be bringing Zoom along on our walkthrough of the library building, I think. So should be a little shorter next time.
Okay, Joe.
When are you scheduled to the walkthrough? When are you planning that walkthrough?
So we'll be meeting this coming Thursday in the large conference room at 1 p.m. We estimate that we'll conclude our business about 1:45 and then adjourn to the library itself to look through it. So anyone is welcome. It's an open public meeting. So we'll be at the conference room at 1, and we think moving over to the library about 1:45.
It's the day after tomorrow, right?
Yes.
That's right. We'd be delighted to have any of you join us.
I will try to, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
By the way, you know, being led by those two is really going to be good. They are both really strong, knowledgeable, and really energetic about what they're doing. So it's going to be fun.
Thank you, Ann.
Ross, if you want to come up to the hot seat, so to speak, here and walk us through your presentation.
Okay, good evening.
We have Magna Dodge in the audience. Should I promote her to panelist? Will
Yeah,
she just
if
chime
she
in?
want- she may be able to add something.
Okay.
That'd be great, thank you.
Take a second, I'll get the presentation up.
So just a quick reminder, you haven't heard from us in a while. We're Communication Union District for Addison County, and in the next slide, you'll see our primary focus is to bring fiber optic broadband to every residence and business in the county. And that includes the unserved and the underserved folks, which happens to be about 39% of all of Addison County. The other big part of our mandate is affordability. It's no use building out state-of-the-art fiber optic broadband system if people can't afford to sign up and make use of it. The thing about the fiber optic is it'll be 100 megabytes upload and download speeds, and it's very, not just fast, but reliable. A lot of folks, myself included, I have a lot of issues when I'm doing, which is why I'm here tonight, instead of trying to do it over Zoom. I can't always rely on my Zoom. I get my screen freezes up. Sometimes my voice drops out. Sometimes I just get booted right off. I lose my connection. I have to try to get back in. Things happen. So all that goes away when you have a fiber optic connection. And the other part is just that it will enhance the economic, educational, and medical well-being of everyone in the community and the county. And Middlebury, actually, we're going to benefit more so than I think any other town, simply because not only are we going to get the direct benefit of folks being able to sign up, but as all the folks in the surrounding counties get hooked up, they will have greater access to our businesses, our services, our cultural events, and that kind of thing. So we're actually, I think there's going to be some indirect benefits that are going to be significant. In the next slide, just want to let you know some of the things we've been doing. Really making great headway. We were the first communication union district that applied for and was approved for a pre-construction grant. And Vantage Point Solutions is the engineering firm we've hired that's in the process of doing that work right now. We're the only CUD to date that has signed an operator agreement with Waitsfield Champlain Valley Telecom. They are well respected and very experienced in the area. And they're going to basically rebuild the system and bring it to the residences and the businesses, and they handle everything on the inside, all the equipment on the inside, the customer service, the billing, and everything like that. So we don't have to duplicate all that. They're going to take care of all that for us. We've completed our business plan, which is in your packet, and really what makes, I think, allows us to be leading the pack of all the CODs in Vermont is the quality of our executive board, executive committee. 3 of the members on that committee have extensive telecommunication industry experience. And so that's really paying dividends for us. Basically, they know what they're doing, and it's allowing us to be very effective and efficient in moving our process forward. And so right now, we're on track to start building next year. Except we're running into one major issue. In the next slide, we're not the only ones trying to build out a broadband system. Turns out basically every state in the country has realized how important broadband is, and everyone's trying to do it all at once. And all of a sudden, you've heard, supply chain issues. Well, it's even worse in some respect with fiber optic. The electronics and the fiber is becoming more and more difficult to get. The best we've been able to find is a 6-month lead time for the fiber optic cable. Some companies have lead times of a year before when you order it and pay for it until you actually receive delivery. And so we are thinking, how are we going to mitigate this? Because if we wait till next year and order, we're not going to be able to build till 2023. And so what we're looking to do now is try to place orders and order within the next month or so here, so that we can get the materials in time for the 2022 building season. And that's really the big kind of issue that we're up to right now, up against. On the next slide, just to give you an idea where we're at financially, The total build out, we estimate to be around $30 million. As of the end of last month, we had $17,000 in the bank, 62,250 we had gotten in grants, and we had spent about 45,000 in expenses. We do have a $30,000 grant that's pre-approved from the USDA, but that's been tied up as Congress fights over the debt ceiling and whatever. They haven't, once they approve the federal funding, we'll get that. We don't know when that will be though. We also have a $2.3 million grant for pre-construction and capacity building that's been approved, but we're waiting for the state to provide us with the grant agreement. Haven't received that yet. It takes time. We were the first one to get approved for that, so they didn't actually have like a template they could use to move it along quickly. But unfortunately, even that money, it can't be used to buy the materials we're looking to buy within the next month here, so we can build next year. We do have state ARPA funds that we expect to be able to receive, over $7 million we think we can get. But right now, the RFP isn't due out until December, and we anticipate, the payout probably won't be until late winter, early spring, which again, with a 6-month lead time and materials, that's going to be too late for us to be able to get the equipment we need to be able to build next year, which is why we're coming to the towns now. Basically, we're asking towns if they can to contribute some money of the ARPA funds that you've gotten from the federal government to this effort. We've already, it will allow us to pre-purchase supplies. We've got Waitsfield, Champlain Valley Telecom. They have warehouse space that's temperature controlled, that's safe, it's secure. They've agreed to store anything we purchase ahead of time for us until it's ready to be used during the next building season. If we do start, we anticipate about 3 years it will take to build out the entire county. So if we start next year, we should be able to get it built out by about the end of 2025, if everything else goes smoothly. And the key here is we really want to keep things affordable. And so we've set ourselves up as a nonprofit. We're all volunteer organization. We don't have any employees, at least not yet. And what we're looking at is trying to fund as much of this as possible through grants and through donations so that we don't have to pay interest. We anticipate we may have to go to the banks at some point, but once we have built out enough of the fiber optic system so that we have about 1,000 customers and subscriptions, we'll have generating enough money that we anticipate we'll be able to switch over to the bond market, which will have a much lower interest rate. And that's going to be key in our ability to be able to provide the service at an affordable price so that it's not super expensive. And that's where the towns come in because with the ARPA funds potentially. We've gotten some donations already. Cornwall has contributed 50,000, Weybridge 40,000, Lipton just recently contributed 25,000. And this is in some cases 80 to 90% of the ARPA funds that these towns have received to date. Now, these are small towns, however, we recognize Middlebury is much bigger. You have a lot more infrastructure. You have a lot of other things you could spend the money on. We recognize that. So we're not expecting and hoping that you're going to give us 80 or 90% of your ARPA funds, but we are hoping that you will contribute a significant amount to help us pre-purchase some of the electronics, the fiber cable, so that once we get some labor lined up and skilled folks to install, we can hit the ground running during the next construction season. And because what we're currently doing with all the grants is reporting on how we spend the money, we'll be doing the same thing for all the towns that contribute. We'll be providing you with a report, how the money's spent, with the invoices, what it was spent on, so it's clear and you know where your money's going. And so the hope is that you will think of wanting to contribute a significant sum and hopefully sometime within the next month or so, because that's where it's going to have the greatest impact.
Kathleen, you watched the presentation from Christine Hallquist, or
Right. As I mentioned, Ross, in my email to you, Christine Hallquist suggested that maybe we could be a backstop for funding. But in hearing you talk this evening, I'm wondering if we could the town loan you some money to order the equipment and then anticipate that it would be paid back?
I suppose that's one possibility.
Oh, I know, and no, it'd be better for us to just give it to you.
It would, that is true. That would have to be something you would conduct and discuss with the executive committee and work out if that's something that the board decided to go in that direction. And then figuring out.
And this isn't anything I've discussed with the board or anything, but just a thought I had in order to help meet your timeline. Because as you said, of our $2.6 million, we do have a backlog of water projects, an upcoming sewer plant upgrade. Both of those are eligible to be using these ARPA funds with. And there are many other things that these funds can be used for. And just to follow up briefly on the other towns' ARPA contributions, I took a look at what Cornwall, Ripton, and Weybridge received from ARPA funds for both their town and their county share. And for Cornwall, $50,000 is 14.03% of their ARPA funds. They're receiving $356,320.
But they've only received the
Right,
first
in the
section.
bank.
So what they contributed was when I said 89%, it's the first amount that they actually got.
And then Ripton is similar, 14.7%, and Weybridge is 16.3% for an average of 15% of their ARPA funds overall. They're anticipated. Middlebury ARPA funds, 15% of the $2.6 million is $393,491. Just a couple of factoids for you.
Yeah, I appreciate.
I'd like to present that in a just slightly different light. The Cornwall, Weybridge, and Ripton dollars that were contributed were really, they are as a percentage of this year's municipal monies that they are receiving are much, much higher than that. For Cornwall, it's 80% of the municipal money that they're getting this year. For Weybridge, it's 93%. And for Ripton, it's 83%. And I believe each of the towns would expect to make further contributions next year as well.
Do we have a sense of how much the materials, if you're looking to pre-purchase materials for 2022 construction, what sum of the total sum you're looking for to buy those materials?
I know the estimated cost for the fiber optic, but not for everything else. Magna, do you have that information?
Sure. We're looking at really a total for 2 years of fiber optic and all the electronics and everything else needed for this coming year. And the total is approximately $2.7 million.
Are you looking to buy 2 years supply right now?
I think 1 year. Our focus is just so we can start construction next year and not lose a year of having to just wait for materials to arrive. So, if we could get, the first year, I think that's the focus right now.
Besides the 3 towns, do you have any other contributions or commitments?
I know we've asked all the towns, but so far, those are the only 3 that have been able to step forward at this time.
When you say all the towns, you're referring to all the towns
In the communication union district, which is most of Addison County. Goshen is part of the Otter Creek Union District, Communication Union District, and I think there's technically Addison County, but they're on the other side of the mountain, so they're not dealing with us. It's easier to be over there. We have 20 towns in our communication unit district.
So you're looking for a response from the board within the next month or so?
That would be ideal, like I said, because that would give us the greatest use, because it will not just help us save money on not having to borrow, but it will allow us to purchase more of the materials we're going to need ahead of time and get it ordered now this year so that they'll be here when the building season, construction season starts.
The 2.7 million, is that what you need total, or does that include the money you already have? Commitments you already have, or is that?
No, I think that was the total for the next 2 years. I think if I understood Magna correctly, the next 2 years of construction, we would need to purchase enough the cable and the electronic, basically the boxes that go on either end of the cable. I think that's the two. Is that correct?
Ross,
Magna?
I can break that out for you. What we decided we wanted to try to do if we could was buy 2 years of cable now. And that we're estimating at approximately $1.3 million. The rest of it is made up of all the other electronics and equipment that we need for this coming year's construction season only. So it's really 1 year of cable and everything else plus year 2 of cable.
But this doesn't
We're being
include-
told that the lead times could be as long as 52 weeks at this point. Everything is in flux. And so we wanted to take the opportunity while we're out soliciting, and we've already gone out with an RFQ to, I think it's now 4 distributors for cable. And we thought we would use this as an opportunity to get quotes for 2 years as opposed to just a single year in the event that we really do start stretching out to 52 weeks for some of the cable.
So Ross mentioned the possibility of a $7 million grant in March. And where would that fit in with this?
That would be from the communication, the statewide Vermont broadband, community broadband organization, and using their ARPA funds, which they have to distribute out. That's where we anticipate being able to tap into that. But again, then they're expected to put out their RFPs in December, and then their process probably take at least a few months. But once that comes through, yes, we'll have money, but we're hoping to be able to order before then.
The, that $7 million grant, that money can be used for the purchase of equipment,
I believe so.
but the other money that you have received, you cannot use.
Well, the 2.3 is only for pre-construction.
Okay.
So that can't be used for it. The 30,000 from the USDA could be used, but we don't know when that's ever going to come through. The federal government tends to be caught up in a lot of their own stuff, and who knows what's going to happen there. So yeah, we're just in a bind right now. I mean, we've got everything laid out. The money is lined up. It's just not right now when we kind of need it because of this crunch in materials.
So I think I kind of like Kathleen's suggestion that we consider, if we can do it, some kind of loan to assist you purchasing, so that you could maybe get some more of the materials here and build. I have to tell you though, I just don't know what I want to commit to the project yet of our ARPA funds, because we haven't had the opportunity to really have a conversation about how we're gonna divide those funds up and where they go. I mean,
Mhm.
we're getting what, 2.6 million? Our capital budget for next year is 1.6, right? So, you know, we have a lot of places.
Mhm.
I think some of these smaller towns, you know, have the advantage, they don't have the infrastructure that Middlebury does that we need to maintain. Where, you know, I want to support this project as much as I possibly can, but I just am feeling like I don't know how much I can commit specifically to you right now.
Sure.
So if we could do something like a loan that we could, I don't know how much it costs to get into consider drawing up loan agreements, but, you know, do we consider some kind of very low interest, longer term payback to help you get some, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the mechanics of all that and how and whether we could use the grant funds once we get them and be allowed to pay back for it. That, again, that would all have to be discussions with, I think, the executive committee, and hopefully sooner rather than later, should that be the route that the board decides to go.
I'm just not even sure we're gonna have, when you wanna have the funds, whether we will even have had a conversation about, you know, how we wanna spend those ARPA funds and where they go yet, like,
Mhm.
um,
Well, in that case, you know, loaning would help cover you in a sense, because you'd be getting the money back down the road. And so.
yeah,
even
and
if-
maybe, you know, like the, DWRS does for us, maybe it's a loan now with some promise to grant some of that in the future once we know,
Mhm.
except that we might loan it not knowing what the grant portion might be, but,
You'd have to word it so that it was flexible enough.
and I'm talking, this is just me, the rest of the board obviously is not saying anything. So.
I think we should have a discussion of our own to figure out what we want to do with it.
Right.
So I think we'll let you know, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot and expect you to make a decision tonight. I understand.
I mean, I think we all, I don't want to speak for anyone, but I at least, and I'm sure a number of us here understand how important this kind of infrastructure is to the greater community. It's just the working out the details, and we, like Heather said, we literally haven't had a chance to talk about what our priorities need to be with that ARPA funding. But I think we all, especially after this pandemic, I think we all appreciate how much, you know,
The need
internet infrastructure is crucial to, you know, everything we want to do, so.
Sounds like you guys need to have a retreat.
We do that every once in a while.
Trade number 4.
Yeah.
Six for
We've
the
done it
year.
a few times, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Russ.
All right, well, thank you all.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you, Russ. Thanks, Magda.
Thank you.
I do
Have a good night.
appreciate all of the information and you putting that together and keeping us up to date with where things are at.
Yeah, I think the timing is such that, like, Christine's presentation is feeding us some information on what the state's, how the state's looking at it, and VLCT has come out with some additional guidance. And I reckon that we're trying to balance making sure we have all of the information and that we're making good decision, best decision for the community of Middlebury. And so we've not tried to push too fast because it just keeps developing, and that guidance as it shifts can really change how we look at that pot of funds and what's best for the community. So we want to make sure, but I also recognize you're looking to try to capitalize on being ahead of the curve. And so we'll do our best to try to at least give you where we sit and maybe look up, maybe we can figure something that will support you in doing that to the greatest extent we can without committing all of those funds. And I don't see us being able to commit in that short time.
You know,
Maybe we can come up, Kathleen's a magician, she really is, so.
Yeah, I'll reach out to the telecommunications board and run that idea by them and see
Okay.
if they could get reimbursed with those funds.
the governor has recommended $250 million, $250.5 million of the state's ARPA's $1 billion for broadband connectivity.
Yeah.
So
There's a big chunk
there's a
of change,
ton
but
of
we,
money sitting out there.
and I was certainly blown away when June Tierney of Christine Hultwood's department said that the task before the state is a $1 billion effort. So $250,000 is a great start, but there is still a hole.
$1 billion effort?
Really?
Well, I guess it's probably because some of them have got so little. We're looking at 30 million, I think you said. So 9 districts, if you had 30 million per, that's just a little over that $250 million. I mean, some of the districts really have a lot of work to do, huh?
Well, the rural nature of our state, especially up in the Northeast Kingdom, places that, larger counties.
Yeah. Makes 30 million sound,
It's a deal.
I'm sorry.
never thought I'd feel good about that.
But Dan does bring up a good point that we're always seeking to leverage our local funds, whatever the source, with other grant funds.
Yeah.
To the greatest extent we can.
Yes, so if you could reach out to the Maple Broadband Executive Board with discussions about this idea of maybe being able to fund us some money until our grants come through, maybe with the idea of some kind of a grant of your own. Potentially, once you know all the expenses and what your plans are, once you figure that out, that might be the best route, if it can happen within, the next 4 to 6 weeks.
All right. so-
I know, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be putting the times crunch, it's what we got stuck with, it's the way the cards were dealt,
Understood.
Okay, thank you, Ross.
Thank you.
And thank you, Magna.
Thank you.
So that takes us to looking at that
Cornwall.
budget.
Better plug
Kathleen?
Okay, and as Chris reminded me, I could do this in the town manager's report, but I ran short on time, so I'll share this report with you. Overall, all of the budgets are tracking. I went back, not to last year because we were in the throes of COVID, but to the year before, and we are pretty much right on track of where we should be. Differences from last year in the general fund, since we had our 3 tax installments, we made our pass-through our tax payments to the agencies and the social service agencies. That's over $300,000, which was a bump in our bottom line for our expenses. The library and recreation expenses are up because they're back online after COVID. DPW budget's down a little bit, but that's because our transfers to the equipment fund were down this year because we reduced funding for the equipment fund, not knowing where the bottom of the COVID trough was. And then there were some changes in the timing of paying for some fixed charges and employee benefits. Revenue, again, we have 3/4 of taxes, and one was due in August, so That's way above last year. And Jackie Sullivan, our town treasurer, notes that we've had a significant number of people pay all 3 installments at the first go round. Highway aid, there's a small supplemental payment in the intergovernmental revenue line item, and local option tax for the second quarter of the year was up $66,000 from last year, which you'll also see in that line item. Revenue for recreation was up $24,000, and library was up $3,000. Also want to note that maintenance of mains is down in the water department by $18,000. And so that's a positive trend. So that's my report.
Questions of Kathleen? Curious about local option proceeds.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's good. It way up from last year, the second quarter. We're gonna get our next installment around November 12th.
Oh, we haven't had third quarter installment yet?
Yeah.
Okay, so the report you gave us on the second is the last that you know of?
Yeah.
All right.
But people reported some of the best business ever over Columbus Day weekend, parents weekend here. It's very favorable.
I love hearing that. He's coming back.
It was very busy around here. Columbus Day.
Oh, it's beautiful too downtown. It's really nice. Couldn't even get in for a coffee.
You can't get into restaurants. It's difficult to get in restaurants almost anytime now.
Some of them are not even open on Monday.
Well, it's, the difficulty part is there's a lot of people out there that want to get in the restaurants. The other difficulty is they're limiting their service because of lack of employees.
Okay. If there's no questions of Kathleen, we'll move on to appointment to the Energy Committee. And the Energy Committee has endorsed starting Middlebury resident Dan Rafferty, and I assume you're Dan. All right. So you sat through the whole meeting for the endorsed Dan as a new member and seeking the board's approval to appoint Dan to the committee. Dan would become the committee's 10th member. And the Energy Committee bylaws do not place a cap on the number of members that they may appoint. And Dan didn't dial in, he actually came here to say hi to us. And welcome, Dan. Any comments?
Happy to be here, happy to see civic government in action, very exciting. And I've been to about 6 or 8 meetings already of the Energy Committee this last year. Mostly Zoom and a couple in person. I enjoy getting to know everybody, and I agree with the mission of the committee as bylaws state, and just want to form a greater commitment to help out by joining.
Nice. I was in many meetings, I remember Heather doing that too. It's impressive when you see somebody that committed to being a part of a committee or a board. And so, any questions? Yeah.
No questions, but
It's
he's
time to get him appointed then, huh?
yeah, we should. He's been he hasn't just come. He's been very much a part of things and a contributor to the committee. And I think, as you know, the Energy Committee has bitten off a pretty big, pretty big task. And the help is welcome. I do think the committee thinks this will sort of fill us out. I don't think we can really handle more members after Dan, but he has been incredibly helpful and involved just as a community member. So we're very happy to have him.
Would you care to make the motion then?
Sure. I move to appoint Dan Rafferty to the Middlebury Energy Committee.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed.
Welcome.
All right, welcome, Dan.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
I think it's pretty exciting to see the energy level and the commitment to that committee, so. And thanks for being here tonight.
How appropriate. Yes.
Did you say it's electric in the energy?
Oh, God. Oh, no, we need to go home now. Thank you, Howard, for joining us.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, bye, Howard.
Bye.
I didn't see you, Howard, I would have asked. Okay, next is
Have a good night, yeah.
planning
Nice to see you in
for
person.
our town college lunch agenda and attendance. And so Kathleen has kindly refreshed us with the attendance roster, and just looking at Dan, I guess you came on after. So Dan and Esther have never been to one,
Yeah, hell.
You're right.
because we haven't had them
Here this week.
since December 2019. Well, you know why. Okay, Farhad, you've been to one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just Dan and Esther, and then I think we start over.
I might suggest Dan on this one just because seniority, and he's been on the board longer. No, you guys came on.
Seniority.
Did you come on the same time?
No,
Oh.
Dan was here
Dan was
first, and then
here,
Esther
yeah.
came on the next year.
Just,
Been here for a long time.
I thought you were in your second year.
I am in my second year.
Yeah, okay. So
I would
I don't, go ahead.
Sorry, I would like to recommend Dan also, then maybe Esther after that. But I also want to point out that Dan took Laura's place, I guess, right?
Oh, yeah, that is true.
And then you took Victor's place. If you're looking at the order, that's what it is, but I would like to have gone.
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mean to finish.
our idea was to try to get exposure to the board so that everybody gets an opportunity to participate. Maybe, sometimes there's an agenda item that is particularly, say, if there was a agenda item that was focused on the energy committee's work, and we would look for somebody maybe who is in that energy committee, and I think you came on one.
I did, yes.
Have that. And, this is kind of an initial launch of getting back to doing it. We're working on the agenda right now. And we're looking for candidate things that we feel we'd like to talk to the college about. And so that we can add them to the agenda. Kathleen will work with Clerk Patton's key staff in our office to flesh out the agenda. And we'll know it before we actually have our
When is the meeting?
7th. I think you're working on.
November.
But aiming for November?
Hoping to, Lori, she does travel a lot. I was hoping we could get something in this quarter to get started. Because there are some things that we're working on. There's the housing project, Howard wants to work on that with us. Two things I had nominated were housing and childcare discussion and bringing the board up to date on this on what their thinking is on that and what the needs are. And how can we move that? I mean, those are two things that are just absolutely critical to the community.
Yeah, I agree. We also had e-scooters.
Yeah.
If it made sense, depending on the agenda, and we can talk about further once you know the timing. I've certainly had the opportunity to go several times. I would step down so that someone else could go if it made more sense agenda-wise. Or, so Esther could go. So please keep that in mind as you're finalizing the plans. Okay? I mean, I don't think that me being there for those topics is any more of a benefit than any other member of the committee. So I know it's always been traditional for the chair and vice chair to go, but I would step down so someone else would have an opportunity.
Kathleen, I am going to be gone that week of much of that week of the 8th or the 8th, I think is the Monday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't get back from Kansas until Friday.
So we're probably looking at that third week then.
You're not in Kansas anymore.
The third week, not. So we're probably looking at the third week then, because next week would be rather short notice.
Is there anything else that anybody's thinking of that we would want on the agenda?
Those are pretty big topics.
Those are, and I think if we can really spend some time digging into the meat on those, that's probably time well spent.
I don't think you could really fit much else in.
And the college often has some things that they want to add to the agenda too, so leaving some space for them to have some time for anything that they would like to discuss as well.
All right, well, let's go on to the check warrants. Dan.
Okay. I move to approve total expenditures in the amount of $467,318.94, consisting of $362,414.80 for accounts payable and $104,904.14 for payroll for the period of October 13th, 2021 through October 26th, 2021.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, board member concerns. Esther.
Oh, so kind, Heather. Thank you.
I'm all good.
All right.
Did you say you were hungry?
I'm very hungry, but I'm all good as well.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm hungry too, but that's where you just said you were hungry. I was like, what?
Go out and eat.
Should we bring food for you?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got a couple of things to say. You all know about Table 21, and Pastor Andy had a meeting with us all today, and we discussed a few things, and we've agreed that Table 21 is going to give $25,000 for to the BNP for rolling grants. We've been issuing rolling grants that, to buy signs, to paint the fronts of a lot of the buildings. So a lot of the businesses around here got up to $2,500 from Table 21 to improve their front of their buildings. And that was Karen's idea. She approached us that months ago, and Table 21 has just been allocating any grants that were been asked for, and I think there's been about 10. So we're going to give her $25,000 to administer that under the same guides guidelines is for improvements of the frontage of businesses in Middlebury. Great. We've also, Karen made a proposal, the last meeting about having her Wednesday afternoons, markets and art shows and food events, here in the town, starting next spring, and she needed $25,000 to do that, for seed money to hire a person part-time to set that up, and hopefully it'll be a self-sustaining, and Table 21 is going to give the BMP $25,000 to do that too. Heather was big on that, so almost all the money's gone, but there's still looking, and we're we've approved another couple of well, at least one other rather large $10,000 grant that's going to go to another business who missed out on the first round that we gave. So altogether, Table 21 is given out almost $700,000 in grants to the town, businesses in town.
That's very impressive.
That's amazing.
Man, it's fun.
Oh,
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's
when
really
you
fun.
can help people and help the community, that's great.
Yeah.
It's just for the individual who is given so much money to our communities, really.
And lives a long way from
Lives
here.
a long way from here. And I know that they've given some money to another church as well, right?
Yeah, there has been other money that's been given to, through our church, originally.
Or did you split that out?
Well, originally there was, before we ever got into Table 21, where we had to create this organization, they had given, I think it was $250,000 to spread around the nonprofits in Middlebury. So $250,000 went popping out right at the beginning of the pandemic, and upwards of $50,000 to some of the nonprofits, mostly the charitable organizations that were helping people who needed help. Then another 200,000 came in, and that's been being dealt out to basically the same thing, and I believe to some individual people, but again to smaller nonprofits. And then there was another hump that came out and told the church that because we weren't keeping it, told the church some ideas of what she thought two churches in town should do with it, and so we did. So money was given to another church.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. So then just giving out money.
It will make you believe in humanity.
Yeah, it sure does. It does. So yeah, it would have been fun. Everybody probably knows that Brian's father, Russ, was the moderator for the church for 20 years almost, and he was very good at being able to get donations and get things done, like build the addition that we had. He'd be tickled pink to see this going on. He'd be right in the thick of it. So.
Okay, well,
Oh, can I add something?
yes, please.
I just thought it would be important to acknowledge the student that passed last week. One of my students living in the building, and how it's just been tough in the college community. Yeah, so it's pretty much
Tough situations.
Yeah.
Something I don't think we've gotten our arms around yet. There's still a lot of that in society. Okay, so we're gonna take the next meeting,
Yes.
okay?
Oh, it'll be a short one then.
Yeah.
Well,
She's good, I tell you.
Not-
Right through those,
you-
right through
not-
that agenda.
not
Good, I'm ready to retire.
Not
No, you're
always. Not always.
Okay,
I have to ask Kathleen for help on that.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Saying all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, 8:45.